just to clarify, because I've created some confusion. There are sign-up sheets up here if you want to receive the weekly resources for recovering resilience. If you want to receive a copy of these slides, I can email you the PDF, but just indicate either on a previous sign-up sheet or on this one tonight that you want to receive the slides, and I'll mail you the set for the entire program. So tonight I'm talking about mindfulness and self-compassion, tools that we can use to cultivate our inner resilience. So we know that human beings face disappointments and difficulties pretty much every day, and even disasters at some point in their lives. So how do we cope with the disappointments and the difficulties that happen every day? We lose our car keys or our wallet. We discover there's mold in the bathroom. We have to take off 3 days from work to take care of a sick child. These difficulties happen all the time, and they're disruptive, unwanted changes. Our computer goes on the fritz, the car needs a new transmission. Or there are big disappointments and difficulties that are an inevitable part of being a human being that happen over a lifetime. Infertility or infidelity, a diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, losing a job, a son or a daughter is wounded in combat or in a terrorist attack overseas. We cause the death of a child in a car accident. We have to cope even with disasters that completely upset our life as we know it, or the lives that we care about, and having to come into a new sense of meaning and purpose. We talked about that this afternoon in the workshop on resilience and post-traumatic growth. So we do need to be able to bounce back from the hiccups and the hardships that are inevitable in the human condition. So the single most powerful protocol that I know for doing that, to help people move through the challenging events of their lives, is the mindful self-compassion protocol that was developed by Kristen Neff, who's a psychologist at the University of Texas, Austin, and Christopher Germer, who's at Harvard. And that's what I'll be teaching tonight, is this mindful self-compassion protocol. There are many, many, many ways to learn and practice mindfulness. There are many, many ways to learn and practice compassion and self-compassion. The mindful self-compassion protocol integrates many of those practices. It's been well researched and empirically validated. It integrates all those tools together into a protocol that's easily accessible. And I've been teaching mindful self-compassion for about the last 5 years. Because mindful self-compassion simply brings awareness to our experience, awareness of what's actually happening, and awareness of our reactions to what's happening, no matter how upsetting or crazy making that might be. And acceptance of our experience, acceptance of what is actually happening, and acceptance of our reactions to what is happening, no matter how crazy making or upsetting those are. And at a deeper level of the brain, awareness and acceptance of ourselves as the experiencer of our experience. So we know we're going to lose our emotional equilibrium, our inner sense of well-being from time to time. There's no question about that. Neuroscientists have shown that mindfulness and compassion practices are two of the most powerful agents of brain change known to science. And these are the practices that allow us to shift our perspective and rewire our brains in response to challenges and catastrophes in ways that are safe and efficient and effective. And they can do that because mindfulness and compassion together activate the caregiving system in the brain. So when we focus awareness on our experience, may I accept this moment exactly as it is. And we focus self-compassion on ourselves, focusing kindness on ourselves as the experiencer. May I accept myself exactly as I am in this moment, even if I'm going ballistic on people. And the common humanity, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that goes through something like this. All of that together activates the caregiving system in the brain. And that activates the release of oxytocin, which I talked about last night. It calms down the stress response. It allows the brain to reopen to a larger perspective so that we can shift from reactivity and negativity and contraction to more openness and receptivity and engagement. So I can offer a story from my own experience about how powerful the common humanity piece of this protocol can be. So a few months after I moved my 80-year-old father out to live near me so I could take better care of him as he declined, he had a stroke serious enough to land him in the hospital and then a skilled nursing facility after that. And one morning, he had a reaction to the medications he was on. He became suicidal, and that was more behavior than the nursing facility could cope with. So at 5:30 in the morning, the staff called me to come and take my father home. And in his confused mental state, he was 81 years old, and despite his frailty, he'd managed to climb out the second-story deck overlooking the courtyard. He was threatening to jump into the parking lot. So when I arrived, my dad was waiting in the lobby, and getting him into the car to take him home really wasn't the problem. But I was completely bewildered about what to do next, and would he be safe at home? Did I need to move him to a board and care facility? And before I walked around the car and got into the car in the driver's seat, I just burst into tears right there. I sat down right there on the curb in the parking lot, and I collapsed, and I just sobbed and sobbed. And all of my fear and confusion about his failing health, it just welled up and kind of took over. The nurse who had discharged my dad saw all that happen out the window, and she came out and she sat down next to me on the curb in the parking lot. And she just gently took my hand, and for 15 minutes, she never said anything, but she just held my hand and gently stroked my back as I cried out wave after wave of grief and anguish. And eventually, as the tears subsided, I looked into the nurse's eyes, and I saw someone simply seeing me and my pain and caring for me and caring for all the pain I was going through and caring for all the family members who had ever gone through the pain that I was going through. all the pain of the human condition. And in that moment, I knew that my struggle was completely seen and understood and accepted. And I knew I wasn't the only one. My pain was the pain of common humanity. So her perceiving and accepting that common humanity, her compassion for me, allowed me to feel some compassion for myself and for whatever the future was going to be for my dad. And that allowed me to regroup right there in that moment. Her presence conveyed to me that I could find my way through this dark time and help me recover my confidence. So my dad continued to live at home for another 9 months, and we had a sweet journey together. So the rest of this talk will be mostly practices, experiential exercises, and meditations. And then there might be time for questions at the end. So a very, very simple practice first. You can see how mindful self-compassion might be helpful to people dealing with any kind of difficulty. Not to run away from the experience, not to be hijacked or flooded by it either, but to be with the experience in an open-minded, compassionate, mindful way. That's what allows the brain to pause and settle and shift out of the contracted reactivity into a more open perspective of the bigger picture. And as I said last night, the direct, measurable outcome of practicing a pro-social emotion, a positive emotion like compassion, is optimism and resilience. So we practice compassion and self-compassion, not just to feel better, but so we can do better. So a simple way to experience this on a very, very introductory level, if you'll do this with me, if you'll simply close your hands into a fist tightly so that you can feel what that feels like to be closed tight in a fist. And then open your palms so that they're open. And then reach your arms forward as though you're reaching for someone. And then place your hands one over the other on your heart. And those are simply the gestures of mindful self-compassion. The closed fist represents the suffering that we can experience when we're in contraction and reactivity. The open palms is the mindfulness open to whatever the experience is. The reaching is reaching out to common humanity, reaching for help and support. And the hands are the heart of the gesture of self-compassion. So we can even begin to feel what it feels like to be able to open and receive compassion. We can lay the foundation for compassion and deepening our practice of mindful self-compassion with an exercise in mindful, affectionate breathing. So if you're comfortable doing this with me, I'll lead you through the meditation. So you simply find a posture that's comfortable, where you can feel supported in your body without any strain or effort. And you close your eyes if you wish, or you allow your eyes to adopt a soft downward gaze. You come into a sense of presence, sense of being in your body, in this moment, and in this place. And you take a few very slow, gentle, deeper breaths to release any unnecessary tension. And you focus your awareness on your breathing, noticing where you notice the breath most easily. Breathing in through the nostrils, breathing out through the throat, through the rise and fall of your belly, and let yourself notice the simple sensations of breathing, just feeling your breath. And see if you can orient toward your experience as you might orient toward a newborn child or a beloved pet, with curiosity and tenderness. You bring a kind and loving awareness to your breathing. You bring a sense of kindness towards yourself as the breather. And you may even notice how your breathing nourishes your body. It nourishes every cell in your body as you breathe in. And it soothes every cell in your body as you breathe out. A simple rhythm of nourishing and soothing. And notice how you don't have to remember to breathe. Your body does that for you. And see if you can feel your whole body breathing. See if you can let your body breathe you. And you give yourself over to the breath. You let yourself become the breath. And just rest in the ease of that gentle, affectionate breathing for a moment. And then you release your awareness on your breathing. You let your experience be as it is for the moment. Perhaps take a moment of gratitude for the breath that keeps you alive from moment to moment. And then take a moment to notice your entire experience of affectionate breathing. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Another practice that's foundational to mindful self-compassion is hand on the heart. This is one of the first exercises I teach my clients and in trainings and in workshops. It's a very fast way to return the body-brain to its natural physiological equilibrium, its safety zone, its range of resilience. So you simply place your own hand on your own heart so that you can feel the warm touch of your hand on your heart center, if you'll do that, if you're comfortable. And you breathe gently and softly and deeply into your own heart center. And if you wish, you can breathe in a sense of ease or safety or goodness into your heart center. And then you remember a moment, just one moment, when you felt safe and loved and cherished with another human being. Not the entire relationship, but just one moment. This could be with a partner, or with a child, with a friend, or a teacher. It could be a spiritual figure. It could be a pet. And as you remember this moment of feeling safe and loved and cherished, let yourself feel the feeling of that moment, the warm glow in your body. You let the feeling wash through your body and you stay there for 10 or 20 or 30 seconds. And when you do this hand on the heart exercise, the warm, safe touch of the hand on the heart center begins to activate the release of oxytocin. It's the brain's hormone of safety and trust, bonding and belonging, calm and connect. So warm, safe touch anywhere on the body can release oxytocin, but there are neural cells, brain cells, around the heart that can communicate directly with the brain and more quickly begin the activation of the release. Breathing deeply into the heart center activates the calming branch of the nervous system, the parasympathetic branch, and the body begins to relax. Breathing a sense of safety or ease or goodness or any positive emotion into the heart center puts the brakes on our very fast automatic survival responses of fight, flight, freeze, and it restores a coherent heart rate variability in the heart, which is what allows the heart to respond more flexibly to stress. And remembering a moment of feeling safe and loved and cherished with someone really activates the release of the oxytocin. Blood pressure goes down, the heart rate stabilizes. The technique is powerful enough to calm down a panic attack in a minute. So you can keep your hand on your heart for the rest of the meditation period if you wish, or any time as you go through anything that's stressful in your life. I suggest to my clients and workshop participants that they practice hand on the heart anytime they experience a startle or an upset, to be able to back out of any difficult emotional reaction before it hijacks them. Or even just to practice the technique to train the brain to create this new response to any difficult moment, even before the moment happens. Research has shown that oxytocin flowing through the body, brain in general, is enough to preempt a stress response from even happening in the first place. And the hand on the heart leads directly into the larger practice of the mindful self-compassion break. So I teach my clients to practice the self-compassion break anytime they're feeling stressed, distressed, upset, worried, or startled. And I teach them to practice this tool before things get overly worrisome or distressing, so that the practice becomes automatically arising when things are truly hard and overwhelming. So I'll combine the self-compassion break with the hand on the heart exercise that we just practiced. So any moment that you notice a surge of a difficult emotion, fear, anger, sadness, boredom, contempt, remorse, shame, you pause, you put your hand on your heart, and you activate the oxytocin release, and you empathize with your own experience. You recognize it's a moment of suffering, and you say to yourself, this is upsetting, or this is hard, or this is scary, or this is painful, or ouch. So rather than glossing over it and just going right on to coping, you're acknowledging this is a hard moment and that you care about yourself as the experiencer of something difficult. And then you repeat these phrases that are on the slide, or any phrases that work for you. These are the traditional ones taught. May I be kind to myself in this moment. And that breaks the automaticity of our reactions. It gives us another way to be responding. May I accept this moment exactly as it is. So this is where mindful awareness and acceptance of reality is one of the most significant predictors of how well we're going to be able to cope with what's bothering us. May I accept myself exactly as I am in this moment, and this is the key. As the humanistic psychologist Carl Rogers said 50 years ago, the curious paradox is, when I accept myself exactly as I am, then I can change. And then may I give myself all the compassion I need. Or I teach my clients sometimes to say, may I give myself all the compassion and courageous action that I need. So those phrases and that pausing mindfully, compassionately to care for oneself, for the suffering that we're experiencing in that moment, actually shifts the functioning of the brain. And we're better able to discern what our wise options would be. So I tell a very, very simple story about myself to illustrate that. Not that this is the worst thing that ever happened, but it was just a moment for me where this practice really came in and shifted the functioning of my brain. So a few years ago, we had a thunderstorm in the Bay Area, somewhat a rare occasion for us, but it knocked out the power transformer on my block. So for 36 hours, there was no heat and no light and no electricity. There was no stove or refrigerator. There were no phones and there was no internet. And I did fine until the morning when I wanted to get on the internet and connect with my world, and that wasn't happening. And I noticed myself getting more and more irritated and frustrated, and that wasn't solving anything. So I left my office and I walked into my kitchen, and there's a magnet on my refrigerator that says, may I give myself all the compassion I need. And I go, oh yeah, I teach this stuff, right? So hand on the heart, may I be kind to myself in this moment. May I accept this moment exactly as it is. I went through those phrases in 2 rounds, and I felt my brain open back up. I could feel it. Wait a minute. I have internet in my clinical office. That's 10 minutes away. And not that that's the worst thing that ever happens to people, but I tell the story to illustrate when I was in my contraction and frustrated, nothing was changing. But as soon as I did the practice, may I be kind, may I be accepting, may I accept myself, my brain opened up and I could solve the problem. So we practice mindful self-compassion, not to solve the problem, but to create the state of mind from which we can solve the problem. So when I teach this practice, we simply repeat the phrases until you can feel that internal shift. You can feel the compassion and the kindness and care for yourself becoming stronger than the original reaction. And then sometimes it's useful to pause and reflect on the experience and see if any possibilities of wise action arise. I now practice an expanded variation of that self-compassion break. May I be kind to myself in this moment. May I be kind to myself in any moment. May I be kind to myself in every moment. May I accept this moment exactly as it is. May I accept any moment. May I accept every moment, so that the mindful self-compassion break becomes a way of being. It's not just a tool. It becomes a way of being. So researchers have found that sometimes it's difficult for us to feel compassion for ourselves. We may feel selfish when we do. And they have found, in fact, that 72% of people find it easier to offer compassion to other people. 20% are neutral. Only 8% feel comfortable offering self-compassion to themselves. But we need to have compassion for ourselves in order to function well and be resilient. So this is a guided meditation that people can try to generate that feeling of self-compassion for themselves in a comfortable way. It is simply to sit quietly and comfortably and evoke a memory or a sense of receiving compassion from someone else. We were upset about something, we were worried, we were distressed, and someone else offered us kindness and care in that moment. And we could feel that and take that in, like the nurse did for me when my father had his stroke and was threatening to commit suicide. And then as we practice receiving compassion from someone, we begin to practice offering compassion to someone, a neighbor or a friend or a pet who is suffering in some way. And you get the feeling of compassion flowing from you. And then you simply offer the same feeling, the same energy to yourself or to any part of you that is suffering or worried in any way. There's we talked quite a bit last night about the importance of being able to reach out for support and gather support from a community of people, a circle of support. And there's a way to do that in our imagination that can help us evoke the sense of compassion for what we're going through. And it's the exercise to create a compassionate friend in our own imagination. So if you'll do this with me, if you're comfortable, simply allowing yourself to sit in a posture that's comfortable, coming into a sense of presence, being aware of being in your own body in this moment, focusing your awareness on the gentle rhythm of your breathing, nourishing in and soothing out, coming into a sense of relaxation and peacefulness. And when you're ready, you imagine that you're in your own safe place, a place that is comfortable for you, where you can feel safe and protected, at ease and content. And that may be a room in your own home, or a room where you're staying here, your tent where you're staying here at Sivananda. It may be in a temple or a meditation hall. It may be in a favorite bench in a park or on the beach overlooking the ocean. It may be in a cafe with a friend. But you let yourself settle into the safety and comfort of being in your safe place in your imagination. And then you let yourself know that you're going to receive a visitor, someone older and wiser and stronger, someone who knows you very well and honestly cares about you a great deal. And this figure may be somebody you already know, a friend or a teacher. It could be someone you completely evoke in your imagination. Could even simply be a sense of warm, loving presence. But however this works for you, this figure wants you to be happy, and they want to visit with you for a little while. So as you imagine this compassionate friend coming to visit you in your safe place, imagine them in quite some detail, what they look like, and how they're dressed, and how they move. And especially what it feels like to you to be in their presence, in their energy field. And then you imagine how you meet and greet this figure. Do you stand up and shake hands? Do you bow? Do you hug? And then you imagine you'll get to have a conversation with this compassionate friend. So you imagine how you will do that. Sitting at a table across from each other, sitting side by side on a couch, or going for a walk. And as you begin to have this conversation with your compassionate friend, you evoke some worry or upset that is current for you now. Not the worst thing that's happening, but something that's enough you can feel it in your own body, in your own system. And you begin to share this worry or this concern with your compassionate friend. You begin to be able to tell them directly and honestly what you're worried about. And you notice what it's like for you to be able to share your story or your concern. And you imagine your compassionate friend listening receptively and openly and understandingly. And you imagine how you feel being listened to and understood and accepted by this compassionate friend. And you continue to tell your story. Your compassionate friend continues to listen welcomingly, openly. And then you imagine any words of acceptance or encouragement or support that your compassionate friend might have to say. And if you could hear whatever you need to hear right now, what would those words be? And as you imagine listening, sense what you feel as you hear these words from your compassionate friend. And when the conversation is complete and it's time for your compassionate friend to depart for now, you imagine how you say goodbye, knowing that you can visit with this compassionate friend again anytime you wish to. And after your compassionate friend has departed and you're in your safe place again with yourself, take a moment to pause and notice and reflect on your experience. Any shifts in your experience of yourself or of the upset that you were working with. Knowing you've tapped into your own deep intuitive wisdom. Knowing that you can evoke the compassionate friend again anytime you need to have that sense of caring and being not alone. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. One more longer meditation that I'll introduce by talking about the difference between compassion fatigue and empathy fatigue. So researchers into compassion and self-compassion are very concerned about what is called compassion fatigue. the exhaustion and the burnout that professional caregivers and even family caregivers can experience when they feel overwhelmed by caring for someone else or taking care of someone else. But the research is reframing compassion fatigue as empathy fatigue. Because when we have empathy for another person's suffering, the same brain structures that process physical pain are processing that emotional pain. And when we feel what someone else is feeling, and we take it in, and we take it on, and we take it home, we can feel overwhelmed and depleted by feeling the pain that they are feeling. But compassion actually registers in the brain differently when we know what someone is experiencing and we can sense their suffering. But compassion, caring about them and wanting to alleviate the suffering, actually motivates us to act. It activates the sensory motor cortex in the brain. And when we have enough theory of mind, which is simply the capacity to know you're you, you're having your feelings, your experience, I'm me, I'm having my feelings and my experience, and being able to differentiate ourselves from another person when we have that healthy differentiation, then it's okay. It's possible to attune to what someone else is feeling and have compassion for what they're feeling, for what they're struggling with, but maintain that healthy differentiation. We can even have compassion for ourselves as we are sitting with them, having compassion for what they're feeling. So then the compassion actually motivates us to take action and try to solve the problem. So here's an exercise that is previewed by this poem that allows us to be with another person's emotional pain exactly as it is and still stay grounded in our own emotional equilibrium. So this was developed as part of the mindful self-compassion protocol, especially for caregivers, professional or family caregivers. So this poem by Miller Williams: have compassion for everyone you meet, even if they don't want it. What appears bad manners and ill temper or cynicism is always a sign of things no ears have heard, no eyes have seen. You do not know what wars are going on down there where the spirit meets the bone. So this is an exercise to be able to have compassion for ourselves as we are sitting with someone, having compassion for them. This is an exercise that is meant to be done in real time, and I use it in real time with my clients. But it is taught as a guided meditation so that you can have the experience in a setting like this. So this is, our last big meditation. If you'll sit comfortably, closing your eyes if you wish. It's sometimes easier to visualize with our eyes closed. Take a few deep, relaxing breaths. Allow yourself yourself to feel the sensations of breathing in and breathing out. And again, noticing how your breath nourishes your body as you inhale. It soothes your body as you exhale. And you let your breathing find its own natural rhythm. You continue feeling the sensations of breathing in and breathing out. If you like, you can place your hand on your heart to remind you to bring not just awareness, but loving awareness, a kindness to your experience and to yourself having your experience. So you become aware of any stress or tension that you might be carrying in your body. Inhaling fully and deeply, drawing compassion inside your body, filling every cell of your body with compassion. Let yourself feel nourished and soothed by inhaling deeply, by giving yourself the compassion you need when you experience any discomfort. And then you focus your attention on your in-breath, letting yourself enjoy the sensations of breathing in, one breath after another, noticing the nourishment of every cell in your body, and then releasing your breath. And if you like, you can also carry a word on each in-breath, such as nourishing, or loving, or compassion. You give yourself whatever you need in this moment. You can imagine inhaling warmth or light, whatever works for you. Now bring to mind someone to whom you would like to send warmth and kindness and care and goodwill. Either someone you love or someone who is struggling and needs compassion. You visualize that person clearly in your mind as though you were sitting across from them. And now you shift your focus to your out-breath. You feel your body breathe out. And you send warmth and kindness and care and goodwill to this person with each exhalation. And if you like, you can add a kind word with each out-breath. Soothing, or ease, or peace. And so you feel your body breathe both in and out. Breathing in for yourself and out for another. Nourishing for me, nourishing for you. Or soothing for me, soothing for you. Or whatever words work for you. And eventually you can simply say, one for me, one for you. One for me, one for you. You feel the breath of kindness flowing in and flowing out. And as you maintain that rhythm, listen carefully to these words, just letting them roll gently through the back of your mind. Everyone is on his or her own life journey. I'm not the cause of this person's suffering, nor is it entirely within my power to make it go away, even if I wish I could. Moments like this are difficult to bear, yet I may still try to help if I can. And you allow your breathing to flow in and out like the gentle movement of the sea, flowing in and flowing out. And you let yourself be part of this limitless, boundless flow of compassion. Breathing in and breathing out. You can focus a little bit more on yourself or a little bit more on the other person as you need to. Breathing in for yourself and breathing out for another. Nourishing for me, nourishing for you. Or soothing for me, soothing for you. Or one for me, one for you. And feel the breath of kindness flowing in and flowing out as you listen again to these words. Everyone is on his or her own life journey. I'm not the cause, or I'm not the entire cause of this person's suffering, nor is it entirely within my power to make it go away, even if I wish I could. Moments like this are difficult to bear, yet I may still try to help if I can. One for me and one for you. And then gently bring your awareness back to simply breathing in and breathing out in this moment, in this place. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And one more word about self-compassion, which is the art of skillful distraction. It's known as behavioral self-compassion. When things are overwhelming and we feel we're about to go under, we need to take a break. It's not to escape the problem, but we need to rejuvenate ourselves. So we take an intentional, choiceful, self-caring break. We make a cup of tea, we walk the dog, we walk in nature, we meditate, we listen to our favorite music, or we dance to our favorite music, we call a friend, we go for a swim, we go for a bike ride. We shift the focus of attention temporarily, and we shift the physical energy. We do something different. We move in a different way. And when we feel cleared and settled and grounded again, then you can re-engage with the difficulty event. You have a clearer, larger perspective on how to respond and how to be resilient and how to be effective. So all of these exercises in mindful self-compassion help bring the functioning of the brain, of the mind, back into its natural physiological equilibrium, back into its range of resilience, so we can begin to deal skillfully with whatever adversity or crisis we're facing. So I hope these tools are helpful to you. Thank you.